Hey guys, welcome back to the channel for another exclusive Collider interview. This one is for the new movie Dreamland, and I have Kerry Condon with me today. How are you doing?
Hey, not bad, thank you.
Congrats on the movie. We did want to go back a little and cover some of your filmography leading up to Dreamland, though. And I wanted to kind of go back to, I guess, almost the very beginning of your career, because I know you worked a lot with Martin McDonagh and you two are close friends. So is there anything about working with him and working with the material that he writes that you find influencing your craft today?
Wow, that's a good question. Well, yeah, because when I was very young, that was one of the first things that I did was two of his plays. And the second one was like a year and a half that I did it for. I guess it influenced me because all the preparation that you do for a play, like you kind of rehearse and you go through all the dialogue and you make your decisions prior to doing it. I sort of still do that, and I'm very strict with dialogue. Like I don't change the dialogue without asking, or I don't add in lines. Like in theater, you have to do it exactly the way it's written. And so I kind of still have that discipline with the script where I don't veer from what's written. And I kind of hate when they ask you to too. It really bugs me when they, very seldom, they say, ad lib. And you're like, no, I'm not ad libbing, because, sometimes people ad lib and they go on for like 2 minutes. And it's like, well, this isn't good for the story. So I like being strict at dialogue. And I suppose when I did one of Martin's plays, The Lieutenant of Inishmore, I was the only girl with a cast of all men. And I think that sort of benefited me going forward, because the character that I played was really feisty and tough, and she had a gun over her shoulder all the time. So I'm very good in an all-male environment, and that benefited me. I kind of know how to work it to my advantage, and I that was good for me.
Just because I'm curious now, have you ever worked opposite another actor who prefers to improvise and ad lib? And if so, how do you adjust to that?
It's not, Jesus, I don't want to cut off my nose to spite my face and say I don't like improvising. I do, but sometimes I think it's like, well, is that because the script is badly written that you want me to improvise? It's different if it's the whole thing is improvising. I don't know, I just sometimes suspect that it's slack on the writer's behalf. I can't think of an instance off the top of my head, but I know I experienced one, because you're standing there going, okay, this is just going on too long and it's just going to end up in the cutting room floor and we're just indulging you. Yeah, it has to forward the story, or what's the point? So I can't think off the top of my head, but I can recall being vexed about it. So I'm sure I did experience in it. I just don't know what one it was on.
Well, it's understandable to have that read on it. I have a Rome question for you next, because we have a lot of Rome fans over at Collider. And in particular, I want to know what it was like working on such a big production back then, because nowadays it's kind of the norm for HBO shows to be like gigantic like that. So what's something that kind of wowed you back then that has become the norm in the industry now?
Yikes. I suppose I was very young at the time and I hadn't a lot of experience, bar the theater that I had done and some like small movies. So I don't think I fully took it in as much as I think if I did, I would have got very nervous and it would have kind of overwhelmed me. But I suppose the costume aspect of it and the props, because they made every costume by hand. And the costume designer was like flying to India for fabric. And then they had all these amazing, really old Italian ladies like sewing beads. And so every costume was so beautiful. And like I'd wear it in one scene and that'd be it. And I'd never wear it again. And all the jewelry was handcrafted by this guy who was good at metal, and everything was made from scratch. So that kind of wowed me, that there was so many people working behind the scenes, and old Italian people who you imagine in high fashion, like beading lace and stuff. That kind of wowed me at the time, I remember, because when I would take off the costume, I would just be like, oh, that's so sad. Like all that work and I'm never going to wear it again.
Did you get to keep anything from that set?
I kept one thing. Yeah, I kept one thing, but I'm never really gonna wear it. So, but I kept it for, sentimental reasons. Yeah.
It's nice to know it has a good home and is appreciated at
I know.
least.
I wonder where all the other costumes are. They're probably in a box somewhere.
I
Oh,
will say I'm a big fan of prop and costume auctions. I shouldn't be spending money on all that stuff, but I just can't help it. So it's nice to know that some of those things find good homes that way. Homes
I
with
didn't even know they have those.
there's a couple things lurking in the background here.
Tell me your favorite thing that you got.
I'm really bad with the mirrored frame. It's this guy right here is Deputy Dewey's tag, his name badge from Scream 4.
No way. Where'd you get
Very
that?
big Scream fan. You should go and browse Prop Store, the website. It's got some good stuff there.
Oh, thank you. Perhaps I will.
So this next one, I have a feeling you're asked about fairly often, and it's about voicing Friday. Because I'm just curious, how exactly do you come to voice a character like that? Is it something that they offer to you, or do you kind of get the opportunity to audition and just wonder, what is this and what does this opportunity hold for the future?
I hadn't a notion when I went in for it what I was going up for, to be honest. But the casting lady kind of had called me in on a lot of jobs and I'd gotten very close, but I didn't get them. So I kind of suspect she was throwing me a bone a little bit, because it was probably like, this poor girl, like, Christ, she can't catch a break. So she called me in and was like, don't, it's no big, she didn't say what it was for or anything, but just read this paragraph in like English accent, American accent, and then my own accent. So I was like, okay, I'll just read it, and didn't think twice about it. And then they called me and they were like, oh yes, it's this part in Avengers, and can you do it in your own accent? And I was, yeah. So it was such a great opportunity. I never would have thought to have done voice at all. I had never done voice work or anything like that. So, and I didn't think it would lead to so many movies either. I thought it was just a one-off job. So it was great.
One might think something like that is you go in the booth and you just do your thing and you get out. What is a part of the process that really speaks to your creative desires?
Well, first of all, because I had never done it before. So that was the big pull. I was like excited to see, and it's a lot harder than you think, actually. Like, I think voiceover actors they're really good. It's a totally different skill. A lot of the time I was doing it to a blank screen, because either they didn't want to like show me what it was, or it wasn't fully done. They hadn't added all the visual effects, because I kind of do it at the end of the job after they've shot it and they're putting in all the special effects. So it's kind of pieced together. And so they have to kind of explain like what came before and what's coming afterwards. So you really have to use your imagination and go, okay, so how high are the stakes? Like, is this the last battle of the movie, or is it like the first battle? So you can kind of know how much to give. But the last one, when he died, was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I watched that sequence over and over and over again, and it gets me every single time.
I know. And at the time too, I was like, but there's hope, right? I mean, like, he's not totally dead. And they kind of looked at me like, I thought, oh my God, I knew my gravy train had just come to a halt. And so they said, do it like it's the saddest thing. Say it like it's the saddest thing you've ever said. And I was like, well, that won't be fucking hard. Like, he's just like, it's all over.
That's one heck of a note there.
Yeah, it was such a great opportunity. Really was.
I adore that franchise quite a bit, and I'm eager to see it grow even more. The next one for you, Better Call Saul. For this one, I was reading something that you said about the process and just in terms of it being a learning curve for you. So now I'm wondering, for anybody else out there who might book a super cool show like that and get to jump in for just a handful of episodes, what advice would you give them to make the most of the experience on the role?
Oh, that's a good question too. I would say be completely prepared and not nervous, because like they just don't have time for somebody being nervous. Like, I'm glad it came at that point in my career, to be honest with you, because if it had come early in my career, I think I would have overthought it and I would have been very nervous. But like, Jonathan is a very strong person and he's very prepared and he's like ready to do it right and take one. There's no like warming up. And so I would say just be very confident in your choices and be prepared, and don't be nervous, because TV goes very quickly and they don't have time for 10 takes, and they don't have time for you making mistakes. So you have to be able to cool as a breeze, come in. And I guess saying not be nervous is because it's not really about my character. The story is about Jonathan's character. And so I think maybe swallow your ego a little bit and remember that you're facilitating the story of a main character. You're not the main character. So I have to kind of remember that, how can I make Jonathan's job as easy as possible and as stress-free as possible? Because he's going to be working when I'm going home. He's got more days to do, and he's older than me too. And so there has to be like a respect for an older actor, I think. As there should be. Obviously, he's got more years and more experience on me. So make the person that you're working with, who's the lead, their job as easy as possible. And if that means like shutting up in the makeup trailer and not saying anything, then shut up in the makeup trailer and don't say anything. Like whatever they want, you give, and that's your job, I think.
With that in mind, beyond just maybe not talking in the makeup trailer, what is something that you could do for him or you've done for him on set as a scene partner that you hope one day someone does for you?
Well, he's pretty easy to work with now, to be honest with you. You don't have to help him that much, like not help him, but I mean, I chat to him in between takes and things like that, you know. Let me think, what have I done for him that I hope somebody would do for me? Well, there you go, just that. Know your lines. And know your lines, and don't be taken up all the time and thinking of wanting to think about your character very much. Like, again, be prepared. Come in and deliver something really great that somebody can work off of. And remember, it's not about you. It's not your show. That's, I think, that's when it works best too, I think, is when you feel like you're partners as opposed to one person wants to overtake the scene. It's kind of, that's when it becomes a bit like, well, it's a dance really between the two of us. So
absolutely.
But that's a hard one. I can't think of anything amazing I've done for him, to be honest with you.
I'm sure he's aware of it. I could probably ask him this question and he'll give me a laundry list of things one day.
He probably does. He's such a gent.
So I got one more for you before we go into Dreamland, because everyone's going kind of crazy right now over Fincher, because we're all really looking forward to Mank. And I know things didn't pan out on the show that you worked with him on, but is there anything about your experience working with David Fincher that I guess wowed you, or something that was super unique about his process with working with actors?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Thank you. First of all, like, I've always wanted to work with him because I heard stories that he does loads of takes. And I was like, I would do billions of takes for just the sake of being in the room with David Fincher. I am such a big fan of his work. And I like to try different things and different experiences. So yeah, no joke. He does so many takes. I had a scene where I had to smoke a cigarette for every take on a phone call. And we did 76 takes. So I must have smoked, I think I smoked some real ones sometimes just because I was like, I need a real cigarette on take like 50 or something. But then it would be herbals and then real ones and herbals. And I think, I loved it. I would do it again in a heartbeat. I loved every minute of it. And it didn't feel like, in the beginning, I was a little worried that like, oh, is it because I did it wrong? Or am I really shit? Is that why we're on take 27? Because like, this is not good. Like, what am I doing wrong? And then you realize, no, it's not that. He's just going to keep going. Just keep going. It's nothing. Just keep doing it. Keep offering different stuff and just go with it. And it starts to become kind of surreal because you get to a point at like take 60 or something where you're like, I don't even know what I'm saying. Like, just words are just coming out. And I don't even know like if it's making sense or... It was, and he was very nice about it too. There wasn't a feeling of like, no, do it again. He would come in at the end and go, thank you very much, moving on. And you're like, I was on a drip at that point going, okay, we're moving on. So I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And he was so smart with every department. It was kind of like Michael Mann. It was that same thing of a director who knew everything about lighting, knew everything about costumes, they just knew the whole, everything about filmmaking. And it's really amazing being around someone like that.
I am a big fan, so none of this surprises me. I am also a mighty big fan of Margot Robbie in general, but also what she's doing in the producing sphere right now. So on Dreamland, what is it like on that set that signals to you that this is a LuckyChap production?
You know, I'll be honest, the thing that really shocked me was, and this is kind of weird to say that it shocked me, but when I wrapped and finished my last day, Margot wasn't there, but she wasn't in the scene, so I didn't think twice about it. She was at the time promoting, I think it was the ice skating movie. Tell me the name.
I, Tonya.
Yes, I think it might have been that. I hope it was that. I might be getting wrong, but she was promoting a movie in LA on her days off, right? So I was like, that's so busy, like shooting a lead role and then your days off flying to LA to do promotion on that. She sent me an email the night I wrapped saying, I'm so sorry I couldn't be there. Like you were so, and all these compliments about my performance. And I just thought, oh my God, like it was so classy, because I thought, where did she get the time? Like, you know what I mean? Or even like think about that, to do that, because between flying and promoting and then learning her own lines and performing Allison and then doing such a great job for the role of Allison, I just found it really classy and kind of, I hadn't seen that sort of behavior from an actress or maybe a producer in a really long time. It was so beautiful and it was nice to get, to be honest.
Exactly why I asked that question. I feel like we need more, I mean, not just incredible filmmakers, but support systems in this business like that.
Yes.
So next I want to ask you about working with Miles, because I feel like you can read the script for a movie like this and maybe not get the full impact of the vision he's about to bring to screen. So what was it about him, especially this being his second feature film, with your early conversations that kind of gave you the confidence that he could pull a production like this off?
Well, the first confidence thing came from the fact that Margot was attached. And so I knew, like, she's not just going to hire any dumb fuck to direct it. Do you know what I mean? I knew that was like, he obviously had something. But I asked him for a lot of references when I was kind of preparing for it before I got to New Mexico. And he gave me pictures to look at. Dorothea Lange has some beautiful pictures from that era. And then there was some books that he recommended to me. And there was like poetry books. The Collected Works of Billy the Kid is one of the books. And then The Worst Hard Times, Timothy Egan book. And so immediately I knew that, like, this guy is smart. It's like, I know it sounds terrible. You're like, he reads books. Nowadays, you're like, that is, a rarity. Sure. So, because he's so young too, you know what I mean? He really was so impressive. And then I asked him, was there music that he was listening to, or music that could help me like set the tone of what he was thinking, so we'd be on the same page? And he sent me some little excerpts of music, and he had composed the music. I know. I couldn't believe it. I was actually kind of jealous, because I was like, is there anything that you're not good at? Like, it was this beautiful music that he had composed to sort of, and it was the exact same kind of tone and vibe that I had thought of when I read it. A lonely, kind of a sad tune that it was the same as what I had been thinking. So that's when I knew that, like, he was a very artistic person. And also that the fact that he was young, I don't really let that kind of influence me, because you can meet an old soul who's very young, and he wasn't cocky. You know, the way there's an arrogance of youth, and sometimes people can be very young and they're talking like they know everything. And I'm like, I've worked with David Fincher and like some amazing people. And so stop doing that. Like, you really don't know everything. And that's how you become really good, is by being open to learning. But he was not a bit like that. He was just not a bit. There was just really, he was very open to other people's ideas. He was very generous of spirit. And that's why I think the DP did such a beautiful job, because he was able to let him do a beautiful job. So
there are some frames in this movie that I don't think I'm ever going to forget. I'm like mildly obsessed with the shower scene in particular, and how he cracks all of that and what it says about their journey. It's just being able to do so much storytelling just in the way you capture something is
yes.
a really special technique there.
It was, and that's a good director, is letting great people, heads of department, like do what they're good at and stepping back and like orchestrating it. And so I could see that he was doing that. So
what was the vibe like on set in general? Because, you know, you just described it as a lonely and sad kind of film, and it is that to a degree, but you seem like a lot of fun. And even though Travis is so intense in this movie, I've heard, you know, stories about how he's a good time too. So what happens when the cameras stop rolling? Do you guys kind of snap out of it and everything lightens up?
it felt like a very young vibe on it, I would say. Like, it felt like I was kind of starting my career again, because a lot of the crew were very young, and so I kind of liked that. It didn't feel super serious and super like, we have to deliver, oh my God, there's so much money riding on this. It felt like it was like a student film in a way, like we were in the middle of nowhere. And I suppose when I say sad, like the movie isn't really sad. I just feel like my character kind of carried an air of sadness. But I think I'm always drawn to that a little bit personally in movies anyways. Travis, yeah, he's not a bit serious. He's totally joking all the time. Like, no, there was no seriousness coming from him. It was just very enjoyable and very small, a small unit and a small vibe to the whole thing.
So I have to wind down with you, but I wanted to end on something a little off topic, because I was reading your comments about Hollywood parties and I got a kick out of them. And I also appreciated just how frank you were about the whole thing. So I want to turn that idea on its head, put the control in your hands. If you had the opportunity to throw your own Hollywood party, name, I don't know, the dress code, food being served, parting gift, whatever it is, what would you pick?
Oh my God. Well, I'd not invite a lot of people. And I would say no cell phones, no posting selfies, none of that. I would say you have to pay to come and the money goes to an animal charity or a children's charity. And you have to tip the waiter. And if somebody doesn't say please or thank you to the waiter, you get out. But I think nobody would come to this party, because I'd be like,
I would come to that party.
Okay. And then I suppose, what else would I have? I'd invite a lot of people who people kind of are controversial, and people sort of try and cancel and things like that. I think I would try and be a little bit forgiving and understanding and see gray areas with people, and that people aren't all bad. So maybe there'd be all sorts at it. But yeah, I guess manners would be a big thing. And yeah. And maybe you'd have to get public transport or something there. Maybe something like that. We'd have to keep it very like, go back to where you came from kind of thing.
I'm into this idea. Put me on the guest list, please. I have to let you go. Thank you so much for your time today. And for everybody out there who now wants to catch Dreamland, because of course you do, it's going to be available on VOD November 17th. Check it out. We'll see you soon.